This tomb is not human architecture. It is the heart of mankind. Ethan Hunt, a world-renowned master who designed a 100-story skyscraper in New York. He lies prone on the dirt floor of a mountain's Yeongwol Jangneung in Korea and burst into tears. His last words, throwing away his Harvard professorship and trillions of won projects, "I surrendered before a 600-year-old barley table." When the Western powers ridiculed it as a heavy pile of dirt, the miracle pine berry song that bowed to the king for more than 500 years. And EomHeung-do's terrible loyalty risked his life, smashed the soul of an arrogant genius. Ethan, the master, who upended UNESCO and born again as Ethan, the son of Yeongwol. The miracle of Korea's warm-heartedness. Hear the loyalty that penetrates the hearts of the world. Here we go. Please subscribe, like, and leave Korea Fighting in the comments.
Hi everyone, I'm a story writer who will make your heart beat again. Ethan Hunt, a world-renowned master, sheds tears after watching the Korean movie The Man, who lives with the king, overwhelmed by the tragedy of the 16-year-old boy King Jeong and the sincerity of the people who try to protect him. He flies to Yeongwol in Korea himself to check out the simple wild vegetable bibimbap in the movie and the weight of time contained in the 600-year-old Gwanyeom song pine tree. Americans, Europeans, prepared a wonderful story about why those arrogant, smug people who always saw us as poor countries on the periphery knelt and wailed on the unnamed mountain valley of Yeongwol, Gangwon-do. I don't know how many times you wet your handkerchief while covering this story. Let's start with a confession from a New York master who proved that we were right, we were not wrong. The morning in Manhattan, New York is cold and cold. There was Ethan Hunt, the man who sat in his glass office, the tallest building on the ground, and dictated the fate of buildings around the world. Ethan, UNESCO wants you to do a due diligence on a place called Jangneung in Korea. This time, when his secretary said, Ethan looks out the window without even looking at the documents. Korea? What heritage is there in a place that used to be a battlefield? He would have just put his name on a pile of dirt. This due diligence will be nothing short of my vacation. Next to him was an even worse woman.
My name is Olivia Renault, an advisor to the Louvre in France.
She paints her lips red and sarcastically says,
Ethan, a small country in Asia, has to be pressed down. In numbers and on a scale. Isn't one of our European cathedrals more splendid than their entire history? Let's go and scratch them in moderation and knock them out.
The two already conclude by banging on a wine glass. They are ready to crush Korean pride. Their arrogance knows no bounds even on the plane heading to Korea. Sitting in the first class, Ethan throws a magazine containing Korean mountain streams and says, "You brought a king to such a rough mountain valley? That's low quality. Architecture is supposed to be built on an open plain." When I saw the carefully prepared bibimbap for the in-flight meal, I insulted the flight attendant, saying, "Is this dog food? It's shallow to have mixed all the food." Our flight attendant had to bite her lips and hold back her tears. However, Ethan was in a strange mood as soon as he got off the airport. A welcoming group led by Kim Young-ho, director of the National Heritage Administration, 90 degrees to greet him as if he were a state guest. "Professor Ethan, thank you for coming all the way." At Kim's polite handshake, Olivia shows off her fingertips, glancing on her leather gloves. "I can't wait to finish this. This hot, humid country isn't my type." Even on the train to Yeongwol, Ethan never stops looking out the window at the modern buildings and saying, "They're fake cities that have copied American technology." Well, folks, the moment he gets off at Yeongwol Station, Ethan's eyes get bigger. Thousands of people, many blonde foreigners, were bowing their heads in front of a portrait of the boy king, Jeong. Are they all crazy? They're crying for a little boy who's only been dead for over 500 years? Ethan was stunned, but he didn't know that, on the hillside he ignored, his lifelong pride would collapse. Olivia looks at the clunky bowl on the table and closes her nose. "What am I supposed to eat in this smelly place, Ethan?" "I'm going to write bad hygiene in my report." But strangely enough, Ethan can't take his eyes off the wild greens and barley that my grandfather served. 600 years ago, it was the last simple meal the king could have received. Grandpa EomHeung-do brings an old forklift from the corner and thumps it down. "You see what it is? It's the same old man who climbed the mountain, carrying the body of our little king on that cold winter day." Ethan asks, changing his glasses. Official records say that the king's body was thrown into the river. Isn't it unusual without historical grounds? Then the grandfather approached Ethan like he was grabbing him by the collar. The ground? When everyone was shaking because of the fear of the word, my old man ran into the river holding his children's hands, saying, "It's not scary to die doing the right thing," even though the room was attached that if you collect the body, you will destroy the 3 families. You Westerners may live by knocking on a calculator, but we Koreans risk our lives when we are told to. Grandpa's voice rings the ceiling of the restaurant. When EomHeung-do pulled up the boy's body floating in the cold river in the pitch-black darkness, how cold his body must have been. How heavy the footsteps of the children that followed him when he climbed the snow-covered Donggul mountain on a forklift. As his grandfather's story continues, Ethan begins to see visions in front of his eyes. His life, buried in colorful architectural drawings and UNESCO's authority, felt like he was being stripped away by a word of righteousness in an unnamed rural area. You will be sweetened to be angry while doing righteousness. Ethan recites the sentence from his interpreter. At that moment, tears well down his eyes. For the first time, he felt the weight of a person after living with the risk of success all his life. Olivia exclaims, "Ethan, are you drunk? This is just a country old man's nonsense." But Ethan is deaf. He holds his grandfather's harsh hand with his trembling hands. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I only realized today how poor a soul I have." The New York great bowed his head in front of his Korean mountainous grandfather. This is the power of Koreans, everyone. A history of the hot blood. Now Ethan was no longer the cold chief of due diligence. He was now becoming a witness to history, carrying EomHeung-do's forklift together. The morning at Jangneung Royal Tomb in Yeongwol is so still that you can't even hear a breath. Ethan left early as he felt uncomfortable with the story told by his grandfather yesterday. Olivia, who was following, still sheds her eyes. "Ethan, what do you mean you have to climb a mountain like this to find a tomb?" It's not construction, it's mountain climbing. It's a factor that deducts points from UNESCO's value score. But as soon as they enter the entrance to the tomb, their steps harden like stones. Fathers, if you've been to Jangneung, you'll know. How do all the pine trees stand there? Yes, they are not ordinary trees. Thousands of pine trees are bent toward one place in unison, like trained soldiers. It is toward the tomb where the boy king fell asleep. Ethan rubs his eyes and looks again. Is this possible? Is it because of the wind? He rushes out the compass and the wind instrument, but the wind blows upward from the bottom of the mountain, and the trees bend toward the ridge above the mountain. It was a miraculous sight that ignored the laws of gravity and biological characteristics. Kim recited in a low voice next to him, "These trees have been bowing to the king since 570 years ago, making atonement for his wrongful death. They are called Bay Song." Then Olivia screams, "It's a scam! It must have been manipulated by the Korean government by winding wires." Around a tree from an early age to trick the whole world, she runs wild and starts to verbally dig into the soil underneath the tree. It was a devious act to find artificial traces and smash Korean heritage. "Stop it!" Ethan screams like thunder and snatches Olivia by the wrist. "Ethan, are you crazy? This is a hoax!" Ethan responds to Olivia's wickedness coldly. Manipulation? No human being can manipulate thousands of trees for 500 years. This is not a human design. This is the architecture of God created by the grief of the land. This is a great order that is never seen by your arrogant eyes. Ethan pushes Olivia away and slowly approaches the Neung. Then he puts down a design note with the Harvard logo, which he cherished all his life as a treasure, on the cold floor. And he realized how shabby those colorful drawings were in front of the boy king's grave. "Do you know how the Snoutmaster of New York did it, everyone?" He knelt on the dirt floor. Then, as he learned from his grandfather yesterday, he bowed very slowly. I'm sorry I recognized you too late." The morning sun is pouring down through the branches of a pine tree, and the tears that fall on Ethan's bent back shine like dew. The scenery where trees bow and even the best architect in the world bow. Isn't this the true dignity of our country, Yeongwol Jangneung, to kneel down around the world? Now, everyone, the story enters into a mysterious realm that the human brain cannot understand. Grandpa EomHeung-do takes Ethan and his crew to the back of the mausoleum, a forest far beyond human reach. This is where my old man met a roe deer. Olivia hates it. "Eden, he's trying to take us for animal stories now?" What does this unscientific legend have to do with UNESCO? But instead of answering, Ethan takes out a state-of-the-art thermal imaging camera from his arms. He's been living his life believing in data all his life at Harvard. Grandpa where the roe deer sat. As soon as Ethan lights the camera lens there, a warning sound goes off from the machine. The surroundings are full of sub-zero cool energy, but only that small piece of land is burning red. Oh my, is it even a hot spring underground? Ethan shakes the camera in disbelief. Olivia looks at the machine and changes her complexion. It's broken. The sensor went out because of the humidity. When she screams and tries to stomp on the ground, Ethan pushes her and lies prone on the cold dirt floor. She then grabs the dirt with her bare hands. No, it's not broken. It's really warm. Ethan's voice begins to tremble. Just imagine, fathers. King EomHeung-do, who was wandering the mountains with his frozen body, cried when he found the warm soil. Ethan starts wailing with the soil in his chest. Olivia, do you see it as just dirt? It's the arms of a mother who has been waiting for this child for 600 years. It's the last resting place from heaven. Ethan suddenly thinks of his son, who was sent first by accident 7 years ago. His son, who buried him under the cold concrete of New York. My child. Should have let my child lie down on such a warm ground. His father's bloody regret, which he hid behind his reputation as the world's best architect, bursts out from the hillside in Yeongwol. He is now not the head of UNESCO's inspection team, but the heart of a father who lost his child. So he puts his head in front of King Danjong's tomb. Olivia gets flustered and says, Ethan, you have to write a report. You have to write it. It's Korea's fabricated. But Ethan snatches the live-action report from her hand and rips it. Review? Who are we judging? How many sheets of paper will you judge this sanctuary created by 600 years of tears and mercy in the sky? Olivia, you are not even human. Ethan's lionesses echo through the forests of Yeongwol. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the power of spirit that our land possesses, and is the basis of the spirit that our people have protected. Now Ethan is a completely different person. The cold reason in New York has disappeared, and his soul has been washed away by the hot standing of Korea. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a conference room at UNESCO headquarters in New York, filled with colorful skyscrapers. The atmosphere is brutal. Olivia had already written down her hand. Folks, Ethan has been brainwashed by Korea's shamanic faith. She tore down the report, insisting that a worthless mountain is a World Heritage Site. The eyes of the commissioners pour on Ethan, but Ethan is not embarrassed. He slowly gets up and turns off all the lights in the conference room. And on the big screen, he shows pictures of Yeongwol's misty Jangneung and the pine trees bowing to the boy king. Folks, the skyscrapers I have built in my lifetime will be torn down in less than 100 years. But I've seen the house of heart that has endured for 600 years in Korea. Olivia exclaims, the evidence is a mess. It's just a curvy tree. Then Ethan throws out a bunch of papers with a cold smile. Evidence? Here's a contract you made with a French construction company. You have to eliminate the Korean royal tomb so that your country's cathedral can monopolize the funding. The small grave you're laughing at is not up to a con man like you. The chamber quickly becomes chaotic, and Olivia screams, being dragged out by security guards. This is a frame. Ethan, you're crazy. The incident did not end there. The next morning, Ethan's contribution will appear on the front page of the New York Times. The title is amazing. I surrendered before a 570-year-old table. In his article, he wrote about the forklift in EomHeung-do, the solitude of the boy king, and the warm soil dotted with roe deer. His confession: Korea had its lost loyalty stuffed in a handful of soil, a single tree in a mountain, overturns the whole of New York. Young people in Manhattan are now starting to wear clothes with the Korean word loyalty instead of luxury goods. Yeongwol topped the list of Google searches, and leading architects from all over the world call him. Professor, what on earth is in that place called Jangneung? Ethan simply replies with a smile. Go see for yourself. You'll see what an arrogant piece of trash you've designed for your whole life. Ethan threw away his entire life as a professor at Harvard University and his architectural project with hundreds of millions of dollars guaranteed. He only had an old forklift from Yeongwol and a small bottle of clay from Jangneung. Where are you going, Ethan? He recites quietly while looking out the window at a question from his colleagues. I have to go where my heart is beating, to where the warm soil that waited for me and the boy that was 600 years ago. What do you think, everyone? This moment when our Korean spirit penetrates the heart of New York. The seemingly insignificant legacy that we were trying to protect so much proved that it was actually a great treasure to save the world. Now let's move on to the last story. Wearing a dirty hiking suit instead of a fancy suit, New York's great Ethan got off at Yeongwol Station again. This time, there are no reporters or vehicles. But the moment he leaves the station door, Ethan's eyes turn red. Mr. Ethan! No, Ethan Au. He was standing with the villagers holding a banner that read in crooked letters, "Welcome back, son of Yeongwol." Sitting in a shabby rice soup restaurant, Ethan drinks makgeolli Korean rice wine for the 4th time. I missed this sour kimchi than the steak in New York, so I couldn't sleep. At his words, market merchants share their affection by putting their heads on top of meat. With tourists from all over the world flocking to Ethan's article, Yeongwol is now a world-class attraction. But Ethan lowers himself, saying, "I just want to be the youngest son of this land." That night, Ethan visited Jangneung alone. Under the moonlight, the pine trees were still bowed down to guard the king. Ethan stands in front of the Nungchim the Guardian good place and unpacks it. He picks the best bottle of wine from New York and sprays it on the ground. "Your Highness, aren't you lonely now? The whole world is calling your name." It was then. Through the thick fog, a boy dressed in silk appears and looks at Ethan, smiling softly. Ethan has an intuition that the king, the boy who has been waiting for 600 years, is finally thanking the stranger for recognizing him. Ethan decided. He decided to build a museum that resembles Yeongwol's soil. It is not a skyscraper, but the lowest structure in the world that penetrates deep into the ground and does not harm Jangneung's ridges. It is human arrogance to rise up, but lying on the ground is a courtesy to life. The blueprint will later become a textbook for architects around the world. He gives Ethan a Korean name. "Now your last name is Lee. Your last name is Ethan, which means to use the Duan letter to call him Ethan. It means to stand by your king until the end." Ethan, or Ethan, has lived in a small house in Yeongwol since then as his friends. He teaches the village children, "Our history is a gem written in tears," in poor Korean. Dear Korean viewers, did you see that? When Americans and Europeans ridiculed us for being poor, we sharpened our weapons of righteousness and affection that they did not have. Eventually, even the world's best intellectuals knelt before the auspicious energy of our land. This is the pride that we have preserved, the country that our fathers built. The pine trees in Jangneung are bent today, but the hearts of the Korean people are stretched out more confidently than ever before. Thank you for watching.
Fathers and brothers, did you see the story of the Yeongwol Jangneung and the New York Master? The cultural impact of the Korean movie, The Man Who Lives with the King, on people around the world was loud and heart-wrenching. The inspiration made him visit Yeongwol, Korea, the world's best design center, and convinced him of the unique excellence of Korean culture through Jangneung, wild vegetable bibimbap. And in Ethan's mind, it was not a magnificent piece of concrete that changed the world in the end. The sincerity of the pine trees that bowed their heads to the boy king 600 years ago, and the hot blood of the elder EomHeung-do, who risked his life to protect his loyalty, touched the world. Like Ethan, who gave up all of New York's splendid honor and became the son of Yeongwol and remained by our side, we, the Republic of Korea, have already become a country of spiritual aristocrats that the world admires. You can hold it tightly tonight with pride that the values we have protected have been right. If you liked today's story, please subscribe and like. Your support will be a great help, thank you.